Welcome, one and all, to the Church of the Future training. Woo! Yeah, that's awesome. A few people are excited. Well, hopefully I've met you. My name is Josh Cook. I am the vKids leader here for Vintage Church, and this is Church of the Future training, all right? Now, before we start thinking about the future and what all that entails, I think it's going to be important for us to look at a few ways that people have gotten the future incorrect in the past, all right? So, we are going to take a look at sci-fi fails and what they mean for us, all right? So, anytime you want to know about the future, it's very important to look to science fiction movies, all right? So, whenever you think about training up this next generation to go on and be the church of the future, we're going to turn first to science fiction movies, all right? The first way that science fiction often fails is in the realm of fashion, all right? Who knows what this is from? Somebody raise their hand. This is the easiest one. Star Trek. I think I heard a Star Wars over there. That's going to get some fighting language from the real nerds in the room, all right? This is Star Trek. Yeah. Barrett might come off the camera and hit somebody for saying that. This is Star Trek. What's astounding about this is Star Trek was made in like the late 60s, early 70s, something like that. And I say that as if you can't tell, right? I mean, look at this woman's hair. All right, she has the total like beehive haircut, and the other one has like the helmet, that was so cool back then. And what they did is they're sitting there and they're making this this television show in the 60s and 70s, and they say, I wonder what hair is going to look like in the future. All right, I wonder what it's going to look like. It's probably going to look just like our hair, except a little bit more exaggerated. So that's exactly what they did, all right? They slapped this beehive hairdo on this lady and this other 60s style do and said that's what they're going to look like hundreds of years from now, all right? So you might be asking yourself, what does this have to do with kids ministry or Church of the Future or anything like that? But I think that the lesson that we can learn from this is that we can't use our own contemporary culture, our own contemporary setting to judge what and how we teach our children, all right? So we can't just say, oh, well, you know what's really important in our life right now? You know what's a big sort of issue in our life right now? You know what I just read on the internet? We're the top 10 most important things to being a Christian, right now. We can't use that. So what do we have to turn to? We have the Bible to turn to. Sadly, science fiction films have no sort of hair or fashion Bible by which they can, set some sort of standard for 300 years in the future, so they just have to guess at it. So that's our first fail, is fashion, all right? The next fail is useless inventions, all right? Useless inventions. Who knows what film this is from? Raise your hand. Come on, you can do it. I know it's a little small. Somebody in here knows it. Oh, this is sad. Back to close. The second one, all right? Back to the Future 2. Who has seen it? Raise your hands. All right, a few people. Okay. So this is the bad guy. His name is Griff, not to be confused with Biff, his grandfather, all right? And what he is holding is just the most fascinating thing to me, all right? What he is holding is this baseball bat, but as you can sort of see in the picture, it's extendable, all right? Somebody was looking, I guess assumedly, someone was looking at the baseball bat and said, you know what, this thing's a little bit too long. We need to make it travel friendly, so we're going to make it to where it sort of telescopes in and out for whenever you need it. So assuming, now baseball players in this future time, which by the way, I think it was like 2015 that they were assuming that this future was going to happen. So be on the lookout. Big change in baseball next year. You're going to see them walk up to the mound, and instead of, knocking the dirt off their shoes with the bats, they're going to go, right? And it's going to telescope out, and then they're going to be ready to go, all right? So this is just one small example of a useless invention. I think even more useless, actually, if you want to get really nerdy, this guy's wearing a vest that at one point makes a sound like a chicken, all right? He just says, they say, are you Chicken McFly? And then all of a sudden this guy just comes out with this chicken. It's like, bark, 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 right, from his vest, all right? So I don't know what else it does, but I'm going to go ahead and put it on the useless inventions list, all right? So what does this mean for us in children's ministry? I think it's important that we make sure that every single thing that we do is giving our children something that they actually need. I think a lot of times we can focus on the wrong things, get caught up in this or that, and not actually give them what they need, which is Jesus. So at the end of the day, we have to make sure that every single thing that we're doing is pointing them towards the most important thing that we have to offer for them, and that is Jesus' love, all right? So, last but not least, societal collapse, all right? This is a very common theme in sci-fi movies, the idea that at one point society is just going to completely destroy itself, okay? So, the example that I have for that has collapsed, all right? I don't know where it went. That's sad. Anyway, so I had a picture there of what I think is the greatest societal collapse movie of all time, Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome, all right? Who has seen this terrible movie? Anybody? Anybody? All right. One taker, all right? It's Mel Gibson. If you really just don't like yourself one day, you should take some time and sit down and watch this movie, all right? It's Mel Gibson and some sort of female singer. Was it Tina Turner. All right, Tina Turner. It is awesome and terrible at the same time, and they wear these like shredded clothes, all right, and there's all this sort of like fighting for food and for power and everything like that. But it's a very common theme in sci-fi to say that eventually society is just going to crumble in on itself, right? I think the lesson that we have to see from this is that I know in our time, in modern American Christianity, there's a lot of sort of defeatism going around, all right? Like, oh, well, the church is dying in America, you know, look at these statistics that I found. These churches aren't growing like they should be, or look at this whole postmodernism thing. It means people will never be Christians ever again. And I think that sometimes when we carry around these negative ideas, we can sort of bring that to the table, maybe even subconsciously while we're trying to raise up our children, while we're trying to teach them in vKids. And so what ends up happening is we bring this idea to the table that everything, you know, is just going all wrong, and then we communicate that to our kids. But the truth is that they are going to be Christians. They are going to grow up and be the future church in a completely different culture, in a completely different world than you and I are. And because of that, we ought to instill them with as much hope as we possibly can, that one day the church of the future will be even stronger than the church of today. And that's really why we're here today, all right? So we're talking about the church of the future. We really want to focus with our kids on making them into an even better church than the church of today. All right? So we have a few different speakers, and they're going to be speaking on these 3 different points. All right? And these 3 points are something we're rolling out right here today at this meeting as the 3 focal points of vKids ministry. All right? They are truth, safety, and fun. Okay? So we were taking a look a few weeks back at like how we could best sort of communicate what's important to our vKids leaders, which is you guys. And we said, you know, we could have these giant lists, we could have all these different sort of check boxes or some big statement that you have to memorize, but we decided to boil it down into these 3 points. So whenever you're working in vKids, these are the 3 things we want you to keep in mind: truth, safety, and fun. That's what we're all about, those 3 things. Truth is the truth of God's word. Safety is making sure that we have a safe and secure environment for each of our kids. And fun is making sure that our kids enjoy church. Now, I know the last one kind of sounds like, well, you know, he's just trying to make this willy-nilly, silly kind of kids ministry where we don't teach them anything, they just have fun and do whatever. I know that's a sort of standard pushback for that idea, but here's what I'd like to encourage you in. The reality is that some parents today are completely dictated by their kids and how they feel. All right? Some parents, if their kids say, I don't really enjoy that, I don't like going there, that wasn't very fun, they're going to be all right with that. And they're going to say, I'm not going to go. Now, that sounds like an extreme example, but put yourself in their shoes for a moment, all right? So your kid, you bring him or her to church every single Sunday, and they go in, they have absolutely no fun. They cry, they scream, they pitch a fit, whatever it is. Then the next Sunday rolls around, all right? Your kid knows it's Sunday, knows it's time for church, so what does he or she start doing? He starts pitching a fit in the house. You already probably didn't go to bed early enough last night. You're tired as well, so there's a lot of encouragement there just to hop right back in bed. So we want to make sure that we have the funnest environment that we can possibly provide for our kids, in addition to having a truth-focused and a safety-focused environment, all right? So these are sort of the sub-points to each of one of those things, all right? So truth. What we want you to focus on, and you can fill these in on your sheet if you'd like, what we want you to focus on with the idea of truth is, first of all, applying truth to life. All right, applying truth to life. This is just basically the idea that we want you not to just give them Bible verses that don't mean anything to them. We don't want you just to fill their heads with knowledge so they can one day pass a test. We want you to give them knowledge that's going to apply to their lives. And we believe that the Bible is God's Word and that it applies to every aspect of our life. So that's what we want to offer to our vKids. Now, that doesn't mean that every single verse that they read or memorize needs to apply to their life right now, but that just in one point in their life, they're going to be able to look back on the truth that you taught them in vKids, and it's going to apply to their lives and make their lives better. All right? Secondly, share truth from experience. I think a lot of times in kids ministry, we don't think to do this. We think with adults, oh yeah, I need to give a real life example. But with kids, we think we just sort of make up some story or use the Bible story. But kids gravitate to this as well, all right? It's very difficult to talk about, how everyone's a sinner to a kid without presenting some sort of example from your own life. Now, you don't have to tell some sort of, terribly embarrassing story, but you can just make the point that we all mess up sometimes and share a case when you do that as well, all right? Finally, guide through what do vKids love. Now, that statement's going to be a little bit confusing to you, but just hold on, all right? But guide through what do vKids love. So Sarah's going to present a little bit more on that a little bit later, and I'm going to run through those in just a second. But it's another thing that we're rolling out. Next, we're moving on to safety, all right? So there's 4 points for safety. Here's what we ask you to do. Use a buddy at all times, all right? This is a pretty simple idea, but it works. It's very effective, and it's really safe for everything that we do for vKids, all right? So use a buddy at all times. This means go into a bathroom. This means basically even when you're just in the room waiting for everybody else to get there. It's just important that you're never alone with a kid you're never alone with a kid at any time, all right? So you need to have a buddy at all times. Next is report incidents and suspicious behavior. Report incidents and suspicious behavior. Now, one of the realities that we have to live with in our day and time is that bad things happen, all right, accidents happen, and churches and other organizations end up getting into lawsuits for them, all right? It's not great. We don't love that it happens. We hate talking about it, but it's a reality of just the day and time that we live in, all right? So one of the best things and one of the simplest and easiest things we can do is report every sort of incident and every sort of suspicious behavior. Because a terrible thing that happens to a church is that an accident happens, all right? Anything happens. But the worst possible thing that can happen is that church handles that accident in an improper or in a careless way. So the absolute first and most basic step that you can do is report any incidents or any suspicious behavior, all right? Next, be aware of your environment. You guys are sort of boots on the ground for us, all right? I just said boots really weird, but we're going to keep moving on, all right? You guys are boots on the ground for us, and so we want you guys keeping your eyes open and looking for anything in our environment that's unsafe or unclean or otherwise unfit for our kids, all right? Finally, for safety, make sure you follow check-in and check-out procedures, all right? We're busily working on some new check-in and check-out procedures. We have some technology that's going to be able to help us, and hopefully we'll be able to roll that out soon. So keep an eye on that. But basically right now the idea is we want someone at the door at the beginning and at the end of gatherings that is face matching children to parents, all right? Now, face matching is just a fancy word for looking at a kid and looking at a parent and then trying to remember that for the end of the gathering, all right? We have to be very careful, again, in today's day and time with different types of family situations and stuff like that we may have absolutely no idea about, but we have to make sure that we give the right kid back to the parent that dropped them off, all right? And we can't give them away to Big Brother or Big Sister or anything like that. We just have to be absolutely careful about making sure that we give them away to the right parent, all right? But Nick Pecorari is going to talk a little bit more about that. Now on to fun, all right? Fun. First and foremost is keep your cool, all right? Some of you guys that are parents probably can sort of commiserate with this idea, but I think that walking into a place like a daycare or even a school or something like that, and I know you've seen it before, but have you ever seen that teacher, that leader that just looks like, they're just destroyed, like they're just like, oh, and like kids are running around, one of them's putting glue in their hair, like their like shirts unbuttoned halfway or something like that. Not like in an inappropriate way, like they're crazy kind of way. All right. So the first aspect of this fun thing is keep your cool because parents can see that. All right. The second one is sort of along the lines of that, and it is basically that you are the face of vKids. All right. So each and every one of you guys are the face of vKids. When a parent walks in, I try and make sure and greet every single new parent that comes in the door, but the reality is I don't always catch them, all right? Maybe I'm away from the table, maybe they walk right past me, whatever. So they're going to see you guys standing at the door. They're going to see you guys interacting with kids when they pick up and when they drop off. And so for that moment, you guys are the face of our vKids ministry. So it's important to always remember to put our best foot forward, all right? And finally, help kids love the church, all right? Help kids love the church. It's a basic idea I sort of hit on earlier when I was talking about fun, but let's just assume for a moment that we are not able to reach a kid, all right? So he comes to church this Sunday, and he won't listen to the lesson. We feel like we're just talking into thin air. He's not paying attention to anything, all right? And he's maybe a behavior problem. Maybe we had to get on to him. Maybe, who knows what happened. I think at the end of the day, if we can try and make sure that this kid had fun in some capacity at vKids. If we can't get him to do anything else, now given, teaching in the gospel, teaching in the Bible, those are the most important things. Don't hear me wrong on this. But if we cannot achieve those things, then helping a kid to have fun is a great way to get him back next week, all right? And if we can't sort of, make sure that we accomplish the goal that we wanted to accomplish in 1 week, then the next best thing is to be able to bring that kid back next week, all right? So those are our 3 focus points: truth, safety, and fun. Remember to always think through those every time you're working at vKids. The other thing that we want to roll out is something that's actually for the vKids, not for you guys. You guys can go ahead and flip it over. I think it's on the next sheet. It is called What Do vKids Love? All right? What do vKids love? Now, I saw this at another church, at another kids ministry, and they didn't use these phrases or anything, but the basic idea is that you create a system of rules or guidelines for your kids, and then you base all of your positive and negative reinforcement off of those guidelines. So these sort of set the tone for every child that walks through the door as to what we're here to do today and how we expect them to act. All right? And they are accompanied by some motions, and the older kids have some sort of follow-up information to them, but the younger kids are just going to learn the big bulleted points. So if I could have my 2 preschool leaders come to the front, you guys can give them a big round of applause. That was not a big round of applause. They haven't even made it to the front yet. This is sad. All right. So you guys can go ahead and hop up on the main stage there. All right. I'm going to make them act through this. I'm going to hide behind holding the mic and this little tablet thing, all right? So, first and foremost, vKids love God, all right? So, beautiful, all right? So, you're going to put your thumbs to your chest, arms crossed over your heart, and point hands upward, all right? So, the younger kids are, like I said, they're only going to learn these main bullet points. vKids love God. Now, the older kids, we're going to expect them to learn the sort of sub-point, which is by learning about His Word and living for Him, all right? We tried to boil everything that we do down into these very simple statements, all right? So, vKids love God by learning about His Word and living for Him, all right? Next up is vKids love their leaders. Nice, all right. Yeah, so they high-five a leader. Luckily, they were both leaders, so it worked out, all right? So, again, the older kids will learn by listening and following directions, all right? So, vKids love their leaders by listening and following directions. Third up is vKids love each other, all right?
vKids love each other.
All right, and so they're not hugging a leader, they're in fact hugging one another, all right? And you're going to have to be a little bit careful of that. Some people have rough hugs, all right? All right, so that is by helping, sharing, and by being best buds, all right? Helping, sharing, and being best buds. All right, finally, we have vKids love having fun, all right? So.
vKids love having fun.
All right, yeah, so you do thumbs to chest, arms over heart, freeze for a second, and then 30-second dance party, all right? So you give the kids 30 seconds to have a little dance party. Hopefully we'll have music sort of to go along with those, especially in the older kids when we're using the TV and stuff like that. And so vKids love having fun by having fun. All right, that makes sense. Hopefully that one will be easy to remember. All right, you guys give a big round of applause for our preschool leaders. They did a fantastic job. All right, so those are the new things we're going to roll out. You're going to go through those every single Sunday. Every time we meet for vKids, you guys are going to lead what do vKids love, all right? And it's going to give them very practical and very specific guidelines for how they ought to act in vKids.